All right. Thank you, my friends, for joining us for another IEPVV program. Steve is very instrumental in bringing us our guest this month, James Neihouse. Thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
You're going to be talking to us about IMAX, space, stuff that
Sort of
most of us will never get to see, right?
a dog's breakfast of kind of weird stuff. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. All right, James, tell us a little bit about yourself and let's get going.
Oh my. Great. Well, thank you guys for having me. This is a real honor to be able to speak with you guys tonight. I I spent some time in Santa Barbara. I lived in Santa Barbara for about 12 years. So I love Southern California and everything about that. So I miss being out there. I got there because I went to Brooks Institute, graduated in 1976, so a few decades ago, and I graduated with an industrial and scientific and color double major. I mean, it was like I was a glutton for punishment, and I did an underwater minor. And my original goal was to get this hair off my nose because it's going to bug me. My original goal was maybe it's on my glasses. My mustache is running raw.
It's not from me. I know that.
It's one of my cats, I'm sure. My original goal was to maybe go to work for NASA and shoot space stuff. I was a real space geek, still am. But would have loved to have been an astronaut, but I don't think I had the chops for it. Plus, didn't have the living in a small town in Arkansas where I grew up, we didn't have a whole lot of opportunity to do some crazy things like that. So anyway, photography, I got started in still. I took stills my whole life. The yearbook routine and that whole thing. Then I right after school, I was working for a production company in Santa Barbara that specialized in underwater. And this guy named Graham Ferguson showed up on our doorstep with this big movie camera called an IMAX camera. I'd never heard of it before, and wanted to shoot underwater with it. So we helped him to do the very first underwater IMAX movie ever made called Ocean for the Rubin Fleet Space Theater down in San Diego. So not kind of you guys' backyard. And that was in 1976, opened in 77. I kind of got hooked on cinematography and started trying to learn as much about it as I could. Went on to work on a few more IMAX films as an assistant cameraman. Ended up with a production company out of Los Angeles named Graphic Films. We did a shoot on the Great Barrier Reef, an underwater film on the Great Barrier Reef in 79. And then in May, just about, I don't know, too many years ago, 40 some odd years ago, 1980, I get a call from the director and said, "Hey, Mount St. Helens just erupted. Can you go be my assistant cameraman on this thing and we'll make a movie about Mount St. Helens." And as it turned out, I did most of the shooting, so he gave me DP credit, and the thing got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Short Documentary, which was the very first IMAX movie to ever do so. So I was really lucky to get that break, and then I got into the space program because of Graham Ferguson, and it's kind of a sad time, actually, excuse me, for us right now, because Michael Collins, who just passed away a couple of days ago, originally suggested to Graham that he should fly the IMAX camera in space, and because Collins thought it was the best way to bring the experience of space travel back to the human race. And
for those that don't know, he was known as the loneliest man in space.
The loneliest man in space. Yeah, he was the poor guy stuck up going around the moon while Buzz and Neil went for a hike.
Yeah, for a hike.
But yeah, so it took us about 6 years to do that, to get a camera on the space shuttle. And since that time, we've shot 7 IMAX films in space. I've been part of all 7 of those. We I trained the camera crew, the camera crew, the astronaut crew, to be the camera crew, and how to load an IMAX film camera. You got to do it with the changing bag. You got to, everything a film crew does on the ground, these astronauts had to do in space. So that kind of got me in a roundabout way into what I really set out to do in the first place whenever I got into photography.
Can I interrupt you here for
Sure.
a second? Because when we spoke last time, you had trained, upwards of like 150 astronauts, but cosmonauts too, correct? Not just NASA
astronauts.
US.
Yeah, astronauts, cosmonauts. I spent time in Star City, which is the Russian sort of version of Houston,
Okay.
and some time in Baikonur at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, their launch facility, which is their version of KSC, the Kennedy Space Center. So yeah, and well as Japanese astronauts, Italian. I've trained 3 or 4 Italian astronauts, 3 or 4 Japanese astronauts. One of my astronauts just launched this last week, Megan MacArthur, to the space station for 6 weeks. I think 6 months, not 6 weeks, 6 months. So still got folks that I've worked with in the program who are still flying, which is kind of fun to see your friends go into space.
Well, and you won an award for all of this too, correct?
I won a couple of best cinematography awards from the Giant Screen Cinema Association. One of the things I'm most proud of is I got a Silver Snoopy, which is an award given out by the astronauts only to unless it's less than 1% of the people who qualify, who are eligible for it. And it's for mission success, contributions to mission success and safety and this sort of things. And what's cool is the astronauts actually give it to you. So I got mine as we were screening the footage from the very first space station crew. Expedition 1 had just come back, and we were screening their footage at a theater in Galveston, and about half a dozen, about 9 or 10 astronauts showed up to watch the footage. And at the end of the screening, they called me down front and gave me my little Snoopy pin, and I about fell over. Totally unexpected. Nice. So it's quite, usually the letter, you get this nice, letter embossed with a silver Snoopy on it. Usually it's signed by one astronaut. Because there were so many people there that night, all of them signed my letter. So I've got 10 or 12 signatures on my Snoopy letter, which is kind of unusual.
Fantastic.
But that, in a nutshell, is me. I still am involved with doing space things. I am in the process of hopefully, we hope to find out next couple of weeks if we have funding for a space shuttle retrospective series that I'm shooting and directing. That will be a look back, sort of Apollo 11 style. Found footage, things that people stuck under their desk and forgot about. We hope to, ferret through some of the archives and find some interesting things. So
I want to throw in a couple of credits
me.
you didn't mention, though.
Oh,
because you didn't mention, you ended up doing something that's near and dear to my heart. You documented the Steel Wheels tour, the Rolling Stones.
Steel Wheels, yeah.
So it's not
got
just
the poster
space,
right back there.
which, right? And you've got 32 cinematographer credits in IMDb. So you've got or at least last time I counted, and I literally
you know more about it than I do. I haven't looked.
a storied career, to say the least.
Yeah, a little bit. I shot Michael Jordan's last season with the Bulls, their last championship season. Did a 3D film about NASCAR. Spent some time in Tanzania with Jane Goodall, filming her chimpanzees there. So yeah, I've done a thing or two. It seems so. It's been a fun ride. Still going, I hope. I'll talk more about some of the things that I'm working on as we go through this little presentation. So, The first thing I have is I got a lot of really boring pictures of an IMAX camera on the launch pad. This is from the Spirit and Opportunity launches back in 2002, 2003, I think it was, something like that. Just want to show you kind of an example of where we put cameras for launches. This is up on one of the structures on the Delta pad that launched those rovers to Mars. We put them in, as soon as it comes up, there it is.
Yeah, this would only be boring to somebody who's been up there many times.
What was interesting was that one shot had a set of vice grips holding something on.
Oh yeah, let's look at that again. Yeah, the chain vice grips down here. It's whatever works.
It's like,
you know.
All I can think of is, when you're doing this, do you also have to do 3 trips to Home Depot?
Hopefully before you get to this point. Typically, you want to go to the launch pad with everything in your kit that you need to make all this work. Yeah. So you just make sure that you've got as many toys with you that you can carry, because they don't like you coming in and out of a launch pad while they've got a bazillion-dollar rocket sitting on the launch pad, right. Ready to go. And we put the cameras out, within days of a launch. So it's kind of time critical. You don't want to be hanging around them waiting for you, because they won't wait for you. They'll just throw your butt out and launch the rocket. You don't get your movie. So you gotta pay attention. This is another camera we had on the same launch. It's kind of sandbagged down. It's a lot closer to the rocket than it looks. It's probably 300 feet to the rocket. So we throw sandbags on it to help dampen the vibrations and to keep it from blowing over, getting knocked over, even though that camera and that housing weigh about 500 pounds right there. That's what it looks like from the front. Like my Ryder truck. That's a Penske. We had, right after the Oklahoma City bombing, I had a Ryder truck that we were using as a camera truck on the launch pad, and the security guys kind of gave us a lot of grief about driving a Ryder truck into the launch pad, but they eventually let us, and we got the cameras in place. More of that. This is it comes up. Come on. It doesn't want to advance. It's being slow. What you should be looking at is the aftermath of there we go, of a launch. This is the front of the camera. Down at the bottom is a little trap door that when we start the camera, it flops open so the camera can see out that port. Oops. What happened?
We lost your screen share.
I lost my screen share. It doesn't like me. I talk bad about Zoom.
You talk bad about Ryder. I guess that had something to do with it.
There we go. All of a sudden I'm staring back at myself. Man, that's frightening. So we started doing this after we first started shooting launches in the early 80s, because we had one shot where we had just kind of a lens hood over the lens, and we went out after the launch and we'd found that a spider had built a web inside our little lens hood. So it was really kind of cool because, it was it's a fisheye lens, so almost everything was in focus. So you've got this really nice, nature shot. The little spider is going around doing this thing, and the shuttle launches in the background, and the spider just kind of he freaks out, and then the acid fallout from the acid rain fallout from the SRBs hit him, and he dies on camera. So it was sad for the spider, and so we started putting these trap doors on all of our housings to keep critters from building nests and to keep dew off the lens, rain, and things like this. So this is actually a sealed aluminum housing that this thing is in. Okay, So this is the photographers. This is how you shoot a launch if you're in the press corps. So we're all out there watching it go. And then, of course, it took these cute little rovers to Mars, which enabled us to get all these really cool pictures of the Martian surface. And now, of course, with what is the new one?
Not Curiosity, but Opportunity? No.
Is it Opportunity? I forget. Anyway, it's the Mars 2020. I've always called it Mars 2020 because that was the original
Perseverance. That's it. Somebody
Perseverance.
Put it in the chat.
Perseverance. Thank you. A friend of mine was a chief NASA scientist whenever they approved that thing, so he always called it Mars 2020. So, anyway, so it allowed us to get some fun pictures on Mars, being beamed back, and now, of course, we're flying a helicopter on Mars. How cool is that? Yeah. We went to Russia to film the very first piece of the International Space Station being launched. So this is actually a 3D camera system here, and I don't know if you'll see my pointer there, but that's the trap door in front of a pair of matched Hasselblad lenses. And so basically you shoot left and right eye and on 2 pieces of film and make 3D out of it. So with 3D, of course, you want to be as close to the rocket as you possibly get. So this is where we put our rocket camera. And this is a Russian Proton launch vehicle. We bolted the thing into the concrete and then piled sandbags on top of it, and then ran telephone wire from there back to the launch control center, which is about, I don't know, a third of a mile away, and to start the camera and put our most expendable crew member in there to push the button. So that's how we got the thing started. Unlike here at Russia, you can go out right before launch and check on your camera. This is less than 2 hours before launch, and we're on the pad, and the vehicle's fueled, all ready to go. We wanted to make sure, mainly that our wire, you can kind of see it over here, this little black wire running away from the camera back to the blockhouse, way back there.
Oh, yeah.
We want to make sure that was still hooked up, because without that, we don't get a shot. So they gave us these bags, and those are gas masks that's around our neck. And they said, well, if you see this bright orange cloud come out of the rocket, put the gas mask on and run away. So shortly after this picture was taken, lo and behold, big orange cloud of gas comes out of the rocket, and I dive into my little bag, my gas mask bag, and I put the gas mask on, and where the eyes, the glass where the eyes should be, there's nothing but air. There's nothing. So I have a totally useless gas mask. And by the time I look up, all these guys, the other guys, they're gone. So they left my ass out there. But fortunately, as you can see, I managed to get away without too much damage. Lost a few brain cells, I don't know. This is a clip from this is the rocket launch. I want you to just watch, and we'll talk about it on the other side here, if this plays. Here we go. Make sure you turn up. Everybody got sound?
The first station component was designed and built in Russia. It's called Zarya. It'll be boosted to orbit by the Proton rocket with a thrust of 2.5 million pounds. You don't want to be anywhere close by when they light that fuse. Proton is an expendable rocket. After delivering Zarya to orbit, it'll fall back to Earth into a safe zone. Other station parts will be hauled up by a fleet of ships of a very different design. NASA's space shuttles. They're more like high-tech delivery trucks.
So you kind of see why we put the camera into these housings to protect it. This is what it looked like right after launch whenever we got back to it.
Whoa.
Yeah, that we had not moved a sandbag one. That's what the rocket did. It blew them all away. If you look over here on right over here to the left, that little black and white thing used to be a microphone. So the sound guy kind of lost it there. But we got the shot. Obviously, this is what the glass looked like. Of course, that's just the port that the camera's looking through, and I had a neutral density filter in front of the actual lens pair, which saved us from ruining, a $250,000 set of lenses. So that's what you do that's why you put remotes out for launches. You don't sit there yourself. Yeah, that would be the facelift you wouldn't want to get. So a few other different rocket launches that I do. This is a SpaceX. This is actually a spy satellite called Zuma that got launched several years ago. And this is a building down at Port Canaveral called Exploration Center. And it was kind of fun. Scott Heath, I think, liked this picture that he got it from me and gave it to one of his friends as a gift. So that's kind of cool, People take your pictures and actually give them to somebody else. That's great. I didn't charge him anything for it, so whatever.
I know Scott if you need a check.
Yeah, I know Scott. I know where Scott lives. I'm not worried about it. This is a Delta IV launch. I shot this with a tilt shift lens, the Canon 17mm TS, and I'd never really tried a tilt shift on a launch, and I like the way it really didn't distort the arc of the rocket. And you can see actually Orion is visible in the arc there. I call this my banjo launch because I think it looks kind of like a banjo. It has nothing to do with the fact that I kind of play banjo.
So those three dots in the middle are Orion's belt. Is that what that is?
That's Orion's belt. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So had no idea it was going to do this. That's the thing with launches. You really don't know what the trajectory is going to be, whether it's going to go straight up or arc over. Eventually, they all arc over because you can't go straight up and get into orbit. You have to go around the Earth. You can't go straight up. It's just one of those physics things that I really never understood.
I'm curious on the tilt shift.
Yeah.
Is there, normally on a tilt shift, you've got, it's an architecture shot and you've got a building to line. How are you lining up your verticals in a tilt shift when it's nighttime and there's not anything really super vertical until it shoots?
I use levels. I use a level on the camera. I set the camera up level, frame up sort of where I want to be, and then I use the tilt shift to do the fine framing of it. Probably can't see it. This is a testament to this is a 5 DSR, so it's a 50 megapixel image. But a testament to the Canon dynamic range on these things. You can actually see the shadow of my tripod in the water down on the bottom left in the original image. So it's a black on black, and it's kind of tough to see, but it's there. You won't be able to see it on this with all the compression going on, but it's there. Back at the Discovery Center, I decided it might be fun to try to do a streak shot in the daytime. I had never really seen one before, so I put 15 stops of neutral density on my camera and went out and set up for this SpaceX launch shot. It was really cool. The clouds that the sort of triangular shaped clouds to the left of the building are actually the exhaust from the rocket that got blown by the wind. So I was fortunate; it kind of mimicked the top of the building. I think it added a little bit to the shot. After I did this, about 15 guys here in the local photography group were all doing daytime street shots finally, and I was like, "Okay, copy me. That's fine. I don't care." This is one I did just last week. This is actually, this is crew 2 going to orbit. This is my friend Megan MacArthur going to orbit. This is a 7.5-minute exposure. And I was amazed that sailboat out there stayed put. It must be aground. Otherwise, it would have drifted around. But what's happening here is, besides the fact that it went out of my frame, I underestimated the arc. This is one of those that everybody said, wow, that thing went straight up. And I'm going, yeah, I wasn't expecting that. But what's happened is it's launched, it's gone up, it's arced back over to head down range. And right after it comes back in frame, you see a little skip in the trail. That's where the first engine, the main engine, shuts off and it separates. And then the second part of the trail is where the second stage ignites. And then further down, you can actually see 2 trails. And because SpaceX lands their boosters, that's the booster landing as the rest of it's going on into space in that same shot. And what happened is the rocket, this was just before sunrise, the rocket climbed up into the sunlight and created this great display of exhaust plume and things in the upper atmosphere. That's why it looks all kind of blue and fuzzy, is because it climbed from a full-on night shot into a full-on day shot in this one thing.
Wow.
There's been a bunch of, there was a few years ago, people got a launch shot from Los Angeles where they got these really weird clouds in the sky after a SpaceX launch. Well, it's the same phenomena as that was. And sometimes it turns fun colors. This is from a shuttle launch. Basically the same thing. It climbed up into the upper atmosphere, into the sunlight, and then because of the solid rocket booster exhaust and all those other things, different propulsion system created all the different colors. And so sometimes you stick around after launch and just watch the sky and see what happens. It's pretty cool.
So this was a shot you didn't plan for. It was just something that was there, and you.
It was something that was there. You know, everybody else is headed back, and I'm a space geek. Because a lot of times, especially on shuttle, a lot of times I'd have friends on board the vehicle. You know, guys I'd worked with. So you want to make sure your friends are safe. And so I didn't go anywhere because that was the quickest information was at the Space Center. So make sure they're safe in orbit. And so I just hanging out. Oh wow, that's really cool.
What are you shooting a shot like this with, lens-wise?
That is probably with a 50 or 70 millimeter. It's not a telephoto at all. Wow. These are technically not noctilucent clouds. There's a phenomenon called noctilucent clouds, but these are faux noctilucent clouds created by the orbiter. And noctilucent just means they're shiny at night. That's the best I can put on it. I just made that up. This is another sort of remote shot. You like that polar bear in a snowstorm? And I'm going to click ahead here if I can. This is from a film that we did for the Smithsonian called Destiny in Space. And we had a remote camera on board the orbiter. And matter of fact, that shot at the end of the Proton launch of the orbiter in space was shot by the same camera.
A star called the Sun is a small planet inhabited by intelligent life. Earthlings have always been curious creatures. Even as we discovered our own world, we dreamed of exploring others.
Leonard Nimoy.
Perhaps other beings inhabit planets around distant stars. If they're sending signals, We could detect them with this powerful radio telescope.
Partially
and
awesome
maybe
because he's also
send a
an
signal
was an
back
amazing photographer.
across the cosmos.
Yeah. And this is all shot
Might
with
we
film.
ourselves
This is film. This is not digital.
to explore new worlds.
This is real. This is not models. There's no CG here.
We've already taken the first small steps outside our planet.
So where's the camera on this?
You'll see. It's a lot easier to show than explain.
We designed this shuttlecraft to carry people and cargo up into orbit. Here, far above the Earth's atmosphere, we're learning how to live and work in space.
Frank, you've got to go down over the order.
The exterior shows just a little of the expected wear and tear of many trips back and forth. The shuttle is equipped with a robotic arm to move large payloads ferried up from Earth.
Houston, do we have a go for SPA's maneuver to release attitude?
It has lifted from the cargo bay.
So there's the IMAX camera. It's about to open this little window and take a picture.
Orpheus, and a remotely operated IMAX camera. Through its lens, we're seeing as never before the exterior of the shuttle as it orbits the Earth.
Wow.
Now, the Orpheus telescope has been released into orbit. We are riding with it, floating free in space. Beneath us, the shuttle pulls away, its cargo bay empty. Orpheus will spend several days observing the hottest and coldest gases in our galaxy. Then the shuttle will take it back to Earth. Over 3 decades, we've learned how to travel back and forth to space and live in low Earth orbit. Now that we have taken these first steps, are we ready to cross the great black void to explore the other worlds in our solar system? The journey will be hundreds of times farther than any we have ever undertaken.
So, go the other direction, dummy. Go. Not that direction. All right. So yeah, that's all 65 millimeter IMAX film in a roll that was 2,700 foot long in a camera that couldn't be reloaded, that was run by a pre-Windows, I forget what that, DOS, was a DOS machine running a basic program language that would feed up through the telecommunication system, through the orbiter to the satellite, that told our camera to run and not run and what stop to shoot at and how long to shoot. That was all done over a period of, we developed the shot over a period of 18 months. we would basically write the computer program and send it up to the orbiter, and we thought everything was fine. But during one of the simulations, we ran all of our film out because the guy that runs the simulations thought it would be fun to have us get our run command on board and never get a stop command on board. So he trained us to send a stop command and then a run command and then another stop command, so that we wouldn't run all of our film out. Because you only get one chance at this. There are no second takes. There are no rehearsals. There is no viewfinder. All of the pointing of that camera was done through orbital mechanics and calculating lens field of view and mission elapse time. So it was quite a stressful morning the day we shot that footage, and especially adding to it, they waved off a full orbit, so I had to quickly go in and in 90 minutes rewrite all the code in order to say, okay, wait for another 90 minutes before you run because we're late. No pressure whatsoever.
So that leads perfectly into Mark's question, which is, how often do you not get the shot? Is there a plan B? To which Stephen answered, that's what FMEAs are for.
In our history of flying IMAX cameras in space, and we flew 24, 25 missions, sometimes with 2 cameras, we had one complete failure of a camera, and that was it. We never lost footage except for that one flight.
That's pretty good.
And probably 90% of everything that the astronauts shot was usable. And we put it in the library and pull it out for the next film. And, if we did that well on Earth, producers would be very happy instead of the grumpy people they are.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a better hit ratio than I get at a concert.
Yeah.
Carl asked the question, what is the reign of sparks before launch?
Okay,
is
those
kind of ignition system?
They're sparklers. Yeah. A couple of things. One is they start the sparklers to ignite any excess hydrogen that's accumulated prior to launch so that they don't have this big boom whenever they start the engines. I think it also actually starts the engines. So they open the fuel valves, oxygen, hydrogen rushes out. Those sparklers actually, I think, start the ignition of the
Gotcha.
engine.
Okay.
That may not be 100%. I'll have to ask my astronaut friends about that. But I've heard that's the other reason they do those. And if you notice, whenever they were sitting there, they started out as all kind of fuzzy, and then all of a sudden they focused into, all 3 of them focused into little blue triangles. Those are called Mach triangles, and that's a sign of a healthy engine. If those Mach triangles don't form, they don't launch.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you want to make sure you've got 3 good space shuttle engines, main engines, before you ignite those solid rockets. Because once you ignite the solid rockets, you're going someplace, whether you want to or not. Because that's tons and tons and tons and tons of thrust. So as you can see our little IMAX camera in its little housing down there. Gives you a size reference. This is the camera that shot all those. It's a 2D camera. You can see our take up and feed magazines are on the bottom. Like I said, 2,700 foot rolls of film. You don't get a reload ever on that camera. So that equated to about 8 minutes of film. And we used all 8 minutes of it. This is just a screen grab from what we saw. You can see the IMAX camera on the satellite, and then its little window opens up when it takes the picture. And this is actually the first time ever in space an IMAX camera was shooting a picture of an IMAX camera shooting a picture.
It's always the first time for everything, right?
There's always a first time for everything. And then
IMAX selfie.
IMAX selfies. Again, another screen grab from that. This is as we're flying away. The whole idea of this satellite was it's got a telescope on it, and they deployed the satellite. The satellite went out and looked at telescope stuff, stars and stuff, and then came back and they picked it up and brought it back to Earth. And actually, our camera froze solid during the time because it was heated because we didn't want to use up their battery. So on the way back in, we had to time it to warm up our camera so that it would run coming back in. And this is probably the most difficult live action motion picture footage ever made. I can say that with 99% certainty. It took a ton of people to do it and a ton of coordination and a ton of people smarter than me working for over 18 months to make that happen. So it's
it seems that you have a lot of conditions working against it being a successful shoot. You know, from just weather to accessibility.
Yeah.
You know, if I have a camera die, I walk out to the truck and get a new one.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's why you plan 18 months, but that's also why you have such a high hit rate. I think that's important to know.
Yeah, it's pre-planning, lots of pre-visualization or pre-visualization, and I think that's sort of where I think I've mistitled my whole presentation here, is that it shouldn't be seen the unseen. It should be be pre-visualized, visualize the unseen. So anyway,
we have a question from Craig Stampley. Yeah, Stampley says, how different is the quality of light in space compared to Earth? Are you having to use filters or settings vastly different from what you would use down here?
Filters, settings, no, not that different. The difference is we don't get the big blue fill card that we have with the blue sky. When you go out in the daytime, you've got sunlight and you've got a fill card that's the whole blue sky. In space, you've got sunlight, which is just a fraction brighter because it hasn't been attenuated through the atmosphere, but it's not appreciably brighter. Plus, we've got the world's largest bounce card, which is the planet Earth, bouncing stuff back in for you. So you either have full sunlight, you have Earth shine, or you have black. That's kind of the only, things you're really dealing with in space.
So it's a dynamic range nightmare.
Oh yeah, in a word. In a word. Who was it from? That's from in Australia.
Craig Stampley, who just asked that question.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mark, by the way, Mark is in here as well. They're both from Australia.
The radio telescope at the beginning of that sequence where it's looking at the stars, that's in Park, Australia. We went down and filmed that in Park, so that's the dish in Park. So a couple years ago, I went out to Casper, Wyoming, to film the solar eclipse for a film about Einstein, and a lot of you probably did the same thing. I went top of Casper Mountain with an equatorial mount and a Canon 50 to 1000 zoom and the Canon C700 and shooting 4K.
I have that lens. In fact, it's just off camera. You can't see it.
You can't see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a pre-production model of that lens for a little while to shoot with, and they're quite phenomenal. Matter of fact, when I was setting up, there were a lot of tourists where I was, and I was almost as interesting as the eclipse was to them. But of course, the prerequisite solar filter for the pre-eclipse times, everybody had to come look at the camera and check it out. I've got my my 1DX mounted upside down with a 400 zoom, 100 to 400 on it underneath it. So I had that running by computer, but my main job was to get the video, so I didn't pay much attention to that. But it was kind of fun until the lady came out with her colander and took all of my audience away. If you have something with tiny holes in it, you'll see the image of the solar eclipse. So that's what she's doing. There's a better version of it with tree leaves. And then, of course, a friend of mine, Marcia Ivins, who's an astronaut, was in Casper, so she came up to the mountain to see me. She was working for Time.com, and brought her special astronaut solar viewing glasses with her. This is it'll pop up. Come on. It's being slow again. Yeah. This is Marcia in orbit. She lets her hair down when she gets on orbit. It's a sensor cleaner's nightmare, but you know, hey, she's the one that brought digital photography into the space program, so she can put a hair or two in the gate of a digital camera if she wants to. This is just a quick video of what I shot. This is off the proxies. It's not the 4K, and it's not running because I got to hit play. There we go. So just prior to third contact, whenever the whole diamond ring and Bailey's beads and all that happens, and then I did a little bit of an iris pull to start getting more of the corona in the shot, which is basically what that is. And yeah, if you've not shot a solar eclipse, there's one coming up in a couple of years that's going to go right through the middle of the U.S. and I will be in the shadow of the moon there at some point. So
wow.
Maybe we'll
I missed
see
the
each
last
other.
one. Yeah, we weren't able to go.
Ooh, that didn't look very good, does it? You can see all my pasting from. Yeah, it looks much better when you don't see all the extra black. Anyway, that's just a whole bunch of stuff from a solar or lunar eclipse that I put together, all the different phases. I think this next one looks a little better. You can see a little bit of that there. I gotta get my blacks to match better. But it's kind of fun to do that kind of stuff. Another project I'm involved with is we're making a film about the aurora. We're actually going to fly a camera into the aurora on board a very small sounding rocket. It's an ongoing documentary platform project, multi-part documentary, working with various scientists and engineers and universities. And we're going to launch it into the aurora. This is one of the rockets. These are sounding rockets. They're small suborbital rockets. Go to about 600 kilometers up and they come back down. Of course, we have to retrieve our payload, otherwise we don't get our data back. So once it goes up, we have to go out in the snow and find what's left of it. We did a bit of science experiment with sort of a high dynamic range combination of two cameras. One of them is the ME20 Canon 4.5 million ISO box, and the other one was an Alexa mirror, and we sort of figured out how to overlay those two images and sync them up and get a shot that didn't blow completely out during launch and still was able to see the aurora all in real time. We did some time-lapse work. I can really testify for Kessler's motion control stuff. It froze, but it kept on ticking a lot better than the camera did, actually. So if you're ever shooting in the cold like that, it's the cables that will get you. They become so brittle, they'll snap. This is about 40 below up north of Fairbanks.
I've got to say, there's no fear of me ever being in that weather.
I was thinking the same
I'm
thing.
just like, and thank you, James, for going there and documenting that and doing the research.
Doing the research.
Literally, this is as close as
you want to get.
getting to this. David asked a question in the chat, and that is,
Sure.
you're getting these shots, not the behind the scenes stuff that we're seeing, but the resulting shots that you're getting. What do you edit your video and photos with?
I use.
Or do you do your own edit?
I use Photoshop for my stills and editing. I don't do my own video editing. We usually hire an editor that does that. Our last IMAX space film was edited on Premiere Pro, pretty much with 5K proxies. So they had a real ballsy editing machine to be able to do it and as efficiently as possible using high resolution material. The problem with up-resing anything to IMAX is that unless you actually view what you're doing on a giant screen, you really can't tell what you've got until you see it projected big, because you can see it brings out so many small flaws in the image that it's a real pain. I had one,
which then begs the question: have you ever had an end result make it to the IMAX screen? James goes to see it, sitting in a chair, goes, "Oops."
Almost. It was, we were in the fine cut. We had made 70 millimeter print. They took it to the theater to do exactly this, to look at it. And a launch shot, one of my launch shots, the camera got rattled so much that it got loose off from its mount and it was bouncing around inside the housing. And it had double images basically on the, so you couldn't see it. We were working off a 35 millimeter print down. Even in 35 millimeter and projecting the 35 millimeter, we couldn't see that. And it wasn't until we got up on the big screen that we saw the problem with it. Fortunately, there was another launch coming up and was able to shoot it. Actually improved on the shot anyway. So
when you shoot IMAX, you're shooting on film.
I've typically shot on film, most of my
Okay, and then you have to scan that. I'm sure that's what you're referring to, is that it has to be scanned and then worked from there.
In those days, we made 35 millimeter reduction print. So we optically reduced the 65 millimeter negative, camera negative. I'm looking, I thought I had something here that I think my cat ran off with my negative, ate my homework. We reduced the 65 millimeter negative to a 35 millimeter print. And if they wanted video, then they would just run it through a telecine scan. That was before we had digital scanners. Now as of early 2000s, we started scanning each frame and doing it that way.
Wow,
that's a lot of actual data. Scans. Oh, it is. It's a ton of data. In theory, an IMAX digital frame should be somewhere around 18K wide, and so 18 by 12K. So you're looking at a big.
Well, and
right.
Craig just posted a JPEG in there that shows you the difference between 35 millimeter and 70
cool.
millimeter. But James asked a good question, and that is, the old IMAX films, are those being rescanned and done in modern technology at the resolutions we have today?
Some are being done that way. It's a hugely expensive process to do it.
Really?
They did North of Superior, which was the very first IMAX movie to ever be done. They scanned it for like a 50th anniversary, 50th anniversary. But it depends on the distributor whether they think they have the play for it, because that's a big, it's tens of thousands of dollars to scan a film,
right,
and into the digital realm. So it's not cheap. So some of, and unfortunately some of them are lost, or soon will be lost, because there's nothing but a 1570 print left of them. And there's probably 2 dozen, 3 dozen 1570 projectors. If it weren't for Chris Nolan and all his movies, there probably wouldn't be any 1570 projectors in IMAX theaters now. But Chris loves his film, and we love Chris, so we let him do it. This is just a shot of one of our test launches with a sounding rocket launching up into the Aurora. This is actually the second of 2 launches in 90 seconds. You'll see the video of this in just a second, so I won't stay on this much longer. No, don't shut down. I have this automatic shutdown on my computer, and it just came up and said, "I'm turning you off." And I said, "No, you're not." This is my homage to Canon RAW. That's how I screwed up and shot that still, and this is how I was able to pull it out. So anybody who says they don't shoot RAW,
hopefully that's not a conversation we need to have anymore
with this
ever
group.
Again.
Yeah, especially with this group. Anyway, that's just some of our fun stuff we were doing with that shoot.
That's awesome.
there's some video I can show you. This is real time. This is real time video of the aurora. This is what it looks like, and you look up with your eyes. You don't see quite as much color as that, but you see that movement. With that ME20 FSH high ISO camera, we shot this, I think, at about 250,000 ISO. So it's, I mean, you're getting stars, you're getting the aurora. There's a shot or two coming up that the blues that are happening up at the top of the frame, I was not seeing in the original. So all of that was brought out in post. All of this is, there is no moon out. This is all lit. The ground is lit only by aurora.
What's the film speed of the IMAX?
IMAX film was the same stock that they have for motion pictures. So it's, you know, it could be anywhere from 50 ISO up to 500 ISO.
Okay.
So it's not real fast. I mean, compared to what we're shooting here, you know, you can never.
Right. Obviously. Yeah. So it's got to be a big consideration when you're creating that IMAX footage, but that's amazing. I would almost put up with being cold to see that in real life.
It's pretty cool, no pun intended.
Mark is asking, what's the frame rate? I'm assuming the frame
24 frames.
Oh, okay.
24 frames a second. And this is a sounding rocket launch. This is from that still image. So the staging, that's the first stage. Then the second stage ignites, flies up past. This was a scientific experiment that had two rockets. The first one had the instrumentation. The second one had a payload of, I forget the name of it, some aluminum nitrate. I don't know what it was. It was stuff that would interact with the solar wind and create its own aurora, and you'll see some of that here in just a second. So they used this to look at the man-made aurora that they created. So this is the second launch. You can see the contrail from the first. Everything in the foreground is lit up by that rocket. We're 6 miles away.
Wow.
So again, there's first stage and then second stage ignition. We cut to a different camera. This is with a 135 lens as it's going through. Here in a second, you may notice, you may not, you'll see a satellite go past. If I can point it out, I will. It's there. Whoops, I screwed up.
Wow.
Anyway, satellite's about mid-frame. It's going right. See it move? See that moving star? That's not a star. That's a satellite.
No kidding. All right. Now I don't feel that any work that I've ever created is amazing.
So this is the chemical release that creates the artificial aurora, and they study how it interacts. And it's our close-up shot of it. It's pretty cool stuff to watch.
That's beautiful.
What I'm gonna do here is I'll show you. You know, this is real time. Normally, you see this in time lapse. People shoot aurora in time lapse, and I'll show you this next shot coming up is that whole sequence in a time lapse and what it takes to do a time lapse. So you see how much you really miss.
Oh wow.
So that was that whole sequence in just time lapse.
Having never been in a situation with an aurora, that is just fascinating to me.
It's fun stuff. It's fun stuff. We've gone to Norway to film. We've filmed at this. They have a launch facility in Norway as well. Space station transits. You know, some of the facts. It's going really fast. It's really high, and it doesn't last long. And crosses the sun less than 6 seconds, 6/10 of a second. And when you're talking, the smaller the object that it's flying past, the smaller the bandwidth you have on the ground to get in the right spot, to get underneath it, to have it between you and and I'll show you an example of that in just a second. If you guys want to try this stuff, transitfinder.com is a pretty good website for it. That still image that was on the front of the title page, this is the real-time video. That was 4K video shot with 1DC, Canon 1DC. And this is how fast it happened. You blink, you're going to miss it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's real time, guys.
Don't look at your watch.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, I took that video and pulled the frames out and made the composite with all 13 of the frames I got at 30 frames a second. So.
And that was one of the questions that somebody asked. Mark asked, what about frame rate? Do you normally, when you're doing these films, do you stay at 30?
No, not for something like this. And I'll show you an example just in a second. As a matter of fact, it's the next slide. So for A Beautiful Planet, after my director saw that image, that still image, she said, well, let's do that for the film. And so I had to go figure out a way to do it. So this is me and a Phantom Flex tech named Matt Drake out in the deserts of California with a Phantom 4K Flex and an 800 millimeter Canon lens with a 1.4x extender and our solar filter. So we chased it for about a week. We started in Big Bear and did a road trip all the way up to Pocatello, Idaho, traveling basically about 250 miles each day because that's how far the track would shift every day. So we got, I think, about 6 chances at it during this particular pass. Again, it's the solar filter that makes it all safe. You don't want to do this without a solar filter. I had a remote monitor set up so I could focus without really touching the camera as little as possible without looking through the viewfinder. I wish I'd had a Fizz, a remote control focus unit on that. Would have made life a bunch easier, but I did that with my Eclipse shots. This is our control center. Talking about apps, this is, one app is running the track of the space station on my iPad. The big monitor is a high definition, I think it's a 4K monitor so that we could watch. And then various camera controls and a time. This happens, you gotta be running whenever it happens. Fortunately with the Flex, when you see it happen, you push the button and it captures everything, for the previous 6 seconds and then the next 6 seconds. So
that's nice. That's helpful.
So you don't have to say, okay, turn it on. We were setting up for a shot and something went through the frame. So I hit the button really quick and thinking that we'd miss the timing. And to this day, it's a UFO. We still don't know what it was. But it was out of focus. We couldn't tell. Anyway, I've got a UFO.
I'm sorry, but I'm not at liberty to either confirm or deny.
Talking about frame rates, this, I'm going to hit play again. There's the play button. This is that same 0.6 of a second when you shoot it at 950 frames a second.
Oh. What did you shoot? Okay, what did you shoot this with that it's 950 frames a second?
That camera I just showed you is the Phantom 4K Flex. Goes at 4K 900. It'll do over 1,000 frames a second.
Wow. I want to be you so bad.
Steve, I was just sitting here and I'm just realizing that, if we're ever all hanging out together, we'll be telling our best ever photo story. And then James goes, yeah, but.
yeah, exactly. We will definitely not be the smartest person in the room.
I mean, the only thing that would beat that would be like an astronaut actually walks into the room.
I thought I had moonshots.
Moonshots.
Oh, it's a TIE fighter.
It's a TIE fighter, yeah. I wish I had a dime for every time I've had that comment on my
Yeah, I know.
I like posting these on May 4th, and
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, had to be said. Had to be
Had to
said.
be said. So this is kind of a blow up of that same. It's tough to get focus on something that isn't there. You can focus on the moon, but that's a 250,000 miles away, whereas the station's only 250 miles away. So I always just kind of focus on the moon and just back it off a little bit. Sometimes it works better than the others. This is one of the times it worked better. So
there you go, Steve. There's your new Mount Everest right there.
Yeah.
Is getting the space station crossing in front of the moon on your
well,
telescope.
and here's
I'm just looking. I'm honestly forget the space station. I'm just looking, and this is normal for the moon. I mean, the main area of the moon is not nearly as sharp as those craters on the edge, but those craters on the edge are so sharp that it's like I'm standing there looking at them in person. It's wild.
Well, and the interesting thing about this is if you look at up around 10, 11 o'clock on the moon, you can see a cloud. It was cloudy that night.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, and then Troy was talking about shooting the moon in daylight. This is a daylight shot of the moon and the space station. So you could actually see the color of the solar arrays and yeah, kind of fun stuff.
No, to get that shot, I mean that station is traveling as fast as you were showing us in those videos. So are you shooting this at like 1,000 frames and you're grabbing the frame that you want?
Actually, this is shot on a Canon EOS R at 30 frames a second and about a 2,000th of a second shutter speed. And then I'm pulling the 4K video. So it's a 4K image. I'm pulling the 4K still off of the video. So
that is stunningly good. That is stunningly good for that.
I'm really wanting an R5 and maybe the R3 once it comes out, because that's going to take this up a whole nother level. So
this was the regular original R?
R, yeah. That's what I'm using for my webcam.
Wow.
This is just a little movie I put together. It's short.
Mark asked a question, have you run this through Gigapixel AI?
No, I should.
Wow.
I should, but I have not. And so we had this sort of gathering of the planets a while back, and this is you can see Saturn and Jupiter and the 4 Galilean moons. I practiced for this one for a while. But this is this is not a telescope. This is the Canon 800 with a 1.4x extender on it. I think I shot this on the 5 DSR, so the 50 megapixel helps with the resolution for sure. Then there's the ephemeral stuff, the green flash. That's always fun to get. You got to have the right conditions. And even if you have the right conditions, you get photobombed. So, afternoon, this is a typical Florida afternoon.
Now, are you doing those with lightning triggers or dragging the shutter?
No. Just I think these are 0.8 of a second exposures. I know this is an
That's
8/10 of a
beautiful.
second exposure. That's one strike. That's that one scared the crap out of me. Then the comets. This is whatever that was last summer. I forget the name of it now. Everybody was out shooting it. Kind of like this one the best. Lots of light pollution where I'm at, so it's tough. This is a UFO I caught shooting the Milky Way. That's Neowise. Thank you very much. Somebody's paying attention. It's actually a lightning bug. That's what happens when you get photobombed by a lightning bug. It's what happens when you point a fisheye straight up and shoot at night.
Okay, that is awesome.
Oh, that's in the Palouse too. This is over where this is actually the moon setting over about 4 o'clock, and that's setting right over Steptoe Butte in the Palouse.
I mean, seriously, that needs to be printed very large on metal.
And this is the racetrack in Death Valley. Always looking for different ways to shoot rocks that don't move while you're there.
Right. Yeah. They move sometime. Yeah.
They move sometimes. Yeah. And then this is just, I call the Rhyolite 12. This is that art installation at Rhyolite goes to town outside of Death Valley. Yeah. Anyway. So that's about what I got. That's
Yay.
me.
So all the links are on screen for everybody. But 70 millimeter DP, 70 mm DP on Twitter, on Instagram, 70 mm DOP on Facebook. His email's up there too. Yep. And then I put earlier in here the link to James's website, and I'm going to do that again.
Let me go ahead and stop the sharing, and
just so that everybody has it. So let me do that really quick.
Appreciate that.
And I'll add all
Here's
those
James's
to the YouTube description too. I have all those in the link notes, so I'll be adding all those.
And then
that's my my workshop's website. So yeah.
Does anybody, if you guys have any questions in the chat right now, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we
you know
can
what I think
surface
we'll do,
those to
Steve?
James right now before we finish up.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank everybody for hanging out with us, and I'm going to stop the recording, and then let's just open up, and we'll just have a little bit of a hangout. So again, for those of you who are watching this as a recording and didn't show up for live, you're going to miss out on the hangout part at the end. So I'll wait until James comes back and we can.
I had to do this for Steve.
Nice.
Yeah, that so cool. So cool.
Yeah, I've got all of my my all access passes, and I've got guitar picks from all the boys that I keep meaning to put in there with it to.
Well, as you know, that's my love and my life.
That's you, yes.
Yeah, I've got the tour photographer for the Who coming up on my show too.
Cool.
Although we're not talking about the Who, we're talking about he shot this particular person, 4-time Pulitzer winner. He shot the cover for "The Sky Is Crying," Stevie Ray Vaughan, and we're going to do that shot probably.
Oh, cool. So I just got my first album cover this week too. Yeah.
For who?
Char-El. He's it's sort of an electronic guy out of Los Angeles. He's passed away, and this is his wife found a bunch of his stuff that hadn't been released, and she's doing a posthumous release. She saw one of my pictures and said, "Can I use that?" Sure.
Very cool.
So
very cool.
My first album cover. I'm coming for you.
Nice. With that, I'm going to stop the recording. So let's say goodbye to our reviewing remotely audience, but you guys hang out because we're going to be here right after.